Hey, everybody, welcome. Glad to have you back. It is the week 7 edition of the Third and Leng podcast. EDGYTIM here, along with our guy. You know him, you love him, Matt Leng, the coach, and very orangey, very pumpkiny today. Are you? Little
Yeah,
U of I, you're U of I
yeah.
heavy here. And
I went out and purchased one of these, and for the Purdue game this weekend, and it's going to be 80 degrees. So go think.
Yeah.
But
It's okay. Congrats, obviously, to the Fighting Illini having a very good season this year, which is great to see. And
yeah,
again, just a lot of excitement down in Champaign. Absolutely. So glad to have you back. We are going to have a special guest join us in probably 15, 20 minutes. We're going to have Toby Valas from Farmington joining us, the Farmington Farmers. Glad to have him in, Matt, someone you're certainly very familiar with. And another team that is on a serious roll so far this year.
yeah. Year in, year out, Toby does a great job at Farmington. We could talk a little bit more later on in the show about his history and everything like that. But he's very knowledgeable of the game. Kind of knows what's going on throughout the state, and he does a great job at getting the best out of his talent and putting guys in position to win. He's got a great quarterback right now with the Wheelwright kid, and he's doing what he does every year, and he just mounts up the wins and does a great job.
Yeah, boy, you run that power offense, but when you have a quarterback that can drop back and play action pass, boy, that changes the whole dimension of that offense, doesn't it?
Yeah, he does a good job. I mean, Toby's very smart, very educated, and he's evolved with the game. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we will be very happy to welcome him in. We will also have questions from you, the viewer and the listener. Put a little something up this morning on my X account. Unfortunately, got a handful of really good questions from you, the listener and viewer. So we will happily dig into that. One of those, I think two of the three are for Coach. And then one of them is possibly for us. So I will go through that. But first, we need to get going. And I know my man here has his traditional opening statement. Sure, the floor is yours.
Yeah, for like down in our neck of the woods, they're throughout the state, but I'm just talking right down here in the Champaign area. The first statement is playoff eligible. We've got our top 6 teams down here. St. Joe Ogden, they're going to be a team to watch out for in 3A. These teams are all 6-0, by the way. Arthur Lovington, Atwood Hammond, 6-0. Paxton Buckley Loda, 6-0 with Robert Boyd Mentz. Gibson City, Melvin Sibley, they're 6-0. Leroy is 6-0. Those guys will be facing off against each other, not this week, but next week in Leroy. That'll be a big game. And then Bismarck County, Rossville Alvin. Bismarck County, we've heard about them a lot. Coach Mark Dodd is a Hall of Fame coach, and he has a big game this week at Moments against Wayne Walker and the 6-0 Moments team. So that should be a really good battle in week 7.
Well, good. I know certainly we'll get to your, I believe you have 3 bullet points here you want to get to. First of all, let's talk about those playoff eligible teams.
Yeah, so like I said, those playoff eligible teams right there, that's that top 6. But then the next bullet point would be playoff statement. And I think playoff statement is a team like Carrollton. And you've heard about these teams, Carrollton, Camp Point Central, Jacksonville Route, Hardin Calhoun. Well, Carrollton was in the state championship game on a couple of occasions. And, in this situation, they beat Hardin Calhoun 10-0. So Rodney Flowers is the head coach down at Carrollton. That's the Western Illinois Valley Conference, so it's on the western side of the state. A lot of people don't know about that football, but it's good, hard-nosed football. So, it's split into a north and south division. Carrollton is in the south. Camp Point is in the north. We know about Camp Point. They won a kind of a controversial game, 22-21 over Jacksonville Route. Route had a chance to win it in the last seconds with the field goal, penalty, all sorts of craziness going on right there. So playoff statement, you're getting some teams down in the south in Class 1A that are kind of flexing their muscles. And so that's kind of interesting. The third bullet point.
So really good. One thing real quick, you were mentioning the Western Illinois Valley. A lot of good teams. You look at those records and you're going to get a whole bunch of playoff, pretty relatively high playoff teams. I know a lot it's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. But Matt, there's some really good teams in there for sure. And that south portion of the conference really looks pretty stacked.
Yeah, I mean, you got Carrollton, you got Hardin Calhoun, you got Jacksonville Route, you got all these teams. I mean, I like that Western Illinois. I mean, I'm biased. I grew up in in the Monmouth, Galesburg, Quad City area, Henry County. But you go down south into the lower regions. Over the years, there's been good football in that area. You go down there. I mean, the Carthages of the world.
Yep.
Now Quincy, QND, Quincy Notre Dame. Quincy is in 7A football. They're 6-0. They'll probably run the gamut here these next 3 games in the Western Big Six.
Yeah,
there's a lot of good football on the western side of the state. You have some eroded pockets of population. We'll talk about that a little bit later with our guest, who's kind of an expert on that. But you got good football. And
then finally, you've got a playoff mystery you want to talk about.
Yeah, just a little bit. I'm kind of thinking about every year when it comes to teams out of the Heart of Illinois Conference, they usually split them up, and they have a team that's going to go north or a team that's going to go south. But sometimes, as we've seen with Ridgeview over those couple of years that they were really good, one year they went north, one year they went south. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens, how this all unfolds. Could Leroy possibly go north, or are they going to go south? Their game in Week 8 at home against Gibson City, I think, is going to be a big telltale of what happens and where they send that Heart of Illinois small division team. Are they going to go north and battle Lena, or are they going to go south and take on the likes of the teams we're talking about? And my other mystery team, Belleville-Altough. I don't think there's any mystery how good they are, but if you look at their schedule in Week 9, they got a doozy. They play Maple Park Caitlin, and we're going to find out kind of what that's all about. Again, no one thought that Belleville could be beat last year. They went in the South, and they got beat by Camp Point.
Right.
Again, I'm not want to be on anybody's dartboard, but we're just going to see what's going to happen with a lot of these teams as they get ready for the playoffs.
Well, I think it's only fair to ask the question. I mean, look, you're talking facts. That's what happened last year. They lost to Camp Point Central. Everyone said, "Oh, big bad Belleville-Altough, here they come," and boom, Camp Point just put them down. So yeah, it's definitely brings a hell of a lot of intrigue this year. There's no doubt about that.
So I think those are good storylines, and we'll have some more storylines as we get closer to Week 8, Week 9. Another one that you might want to think about too is Tolono Unity. They're going to have their backs against the wall, sort of say, in Week 8 and Week 9. Week 8, they take on Paxton Buckley Loda, and that's at Paxton Buckley Loda, and then in Week 9 they're at home against Monticello. So Scott Hamilton has had a great run there. He's only missed the playoffs 1 year. It's going to be interesting to see if he gets in at 6-3, 5-4, or could he be 4-5?
All right. Before we start breaking down the classes, and we'll go through top 10s for 4A through 8-man football, Matt, as I mentioned earlier today, posted a question and just said to the fans, "Hey, we're recording tonight. If you have any questions for us or for Coach Vallas, fire away." And we got some great ones. So for us, man, I'm assuming this one's for us. My guy Weather on the Go, who's like one of the great fans out there, that he's kind of everywhere. He follows everything, and definitely he's a great fan. So here's this question: what's your take on the Dixon at Johnston City game? First ever meeting of both teams, and both teams are 6-0. How do you think Johnston City will fare against Dixon's high-powered offense and stingy defense? Coach, your thoughts?
Well, Dixon is a storied football program. Johnston City's kind of been up and down, over the year. I think, in that type of situation, when you get into this time of the year, your good football teams are going to be really good at running the ball, playing great defense, and really good on special teams. And I think what it's going to come down to is just the run game. Can Dixon keep establishing that good line of scrimmage that they've had all year? Johnston City's just been one of those teams that are, hey, they're playing great defense. I think it's going to be, it could come down to the coin flip too. Who gets the ball first, who establishes the tempo, 2 6-0s. And we've got some 6-0s and 7-0s getting ready to gear up down here. So it's all about who sets the tone early in that game.
It's just cool. You're getting two teams that generally wouldn't have ever played each other.
Yeah.
You're Dixon going all the way down to Johnson City. That's a haul. That is a trip, and good for both schools. I mean, this could have been possibly a non-game that that for whatever they were able to come together and schedule this game. I think it's a great test for both. You mentioned Dixon. Dixon's been putting up huge points this year. So you definitely want to see if that travels. And this is a great way to go against Johnson City and see if you're able to, and again, Dixon offensively, they've been slinging it. They've been doing everything this year. See how well that plays on the road. And I think we're going to find out pretty quickly, Matt, in that game. Yeah, I think we're going to find out who's kind of for real and maybe who isn't quite where they should be. That's my thought on it.
Johnson City, I know a few years ago, had a really good defensive back that went to Wisconsin.
He's starting for the Badgers now.
Yeah, he's a really good football player. And they've had some great football down there in Johnson City. And I'll tell you this, one of my favorite football memories was it was when Kevin Crandall was in his last, not his last years, but he was on that last final stretch at Rochelle. And watched his Rochelle team go to Dixon and beat them in the playoffs. And I tell you what, man, you talk about just a neat kind of old storied school setting in Dixon. That's neat. And I'm glad to see some of these schools are good again. And that's great.
All right, let's go through. We're going to start with eight man. So we're going to give the 8-man top 10 according to our friends at NUICfootball.com. By the way, our guys at NUIC do have a question for Coach Vallas. So we will share that with everyone in a little bit. But Matt, we'll go through it quickly here. Others receiving votes: South Beloit, St. Anne, and South Fork. Number 10, West Carroll. Number 9, Flanagan, Cornell, Woodland. Number 8, Cisna Park. 7 is Pawnee. 6 is West Central. 5, Martinsville. 4, Milledgeville. 3, Amboy. 2, Ridgewood. And 1, Polo. Matt, thoughts?
Well, first of all, I had sent a text message to Pat Elder, and I just, I dropped the ball last time we had Pat on our podcast. Pat's team, when we were talking to him that night, they had just came off kind of a revenge win against Amboy. And from all the people that I talked to over there, they applauded Coach Elder's coaching that game. They won that game 26-21. You have to realize Pat's team literally got taken to the woodshed in the state championship game last year at Monmouth. And in week 1, they really just didn't stand up and really get the job done. So I tip my hat off to Pat Elder and his team right now. You have a lot of good football teams. Polo's good. Flanagan's good. I mean, all these teams are revving their engine up. They're all playing good football. It's going to be really interesting to see. St. Thomas More has a big game this week against a rival Blue Ridge down here in 8-man in the East Conference. And St. Thomas More is 4-2 right now. So, again, it's a blast to see this happening. I will just tell you, the ships are going to collide in week 9. Pat Elder and Ridgewood against Jason Kirby and West Central. And they both could be going for that title right there.
So there you go. That is 8-man. Let's go to 1A according to NUICfootball.com. Others receiving votes this week: Galena, Stockton, Cesar Valor, Rockford Lutheran, and Carrollton. Number 10, KZ Westfield. Number 9, Greenfield Northwest. Gibson City, Melvin Sibley at 8. Stark County at 7. Calhoun at 6. Newman Central Catholic at 5. Camp Point Central at 4. Leroy at 3. Lena Winslow at 2. And Althoff at 1. Matt, thoughts?
Well, we talked about Belleville, Althoff. So now we'll talk about some other teams, okay? Lena Winslow, they go against Eastland Pearl City this week. Leroy has a challenging game at Warrensburg. Okay, that'll be interesting to see if maybe Warrensburg's athletes can slow down that option football that Leroy has. I will tell you this, Sterling Newman, it's so weird to talk about them in 1A football, but in week 7, they take on a 3-3 team. Week 8, they take a 3-3 team. Week 9, they take on Monmouth Roseville, who we'll talk about later in 3A. Will Sterling Newman be battle tested when it comes to playoffs? Yep. If I had to put my chips in, I would say yes, they are, and they'll be ready to go. Yep. And I will tell you also, too, you want to talk about some slobber knocker football down here. If you go on the western side of the state, over there in the middle of the state, Princeton against Stark County, 6-0 versus 6-0. Coach Carruthers against Coach Nord. It's going to be a great, great, great atmosphere for the Lincoln Trail. And Coach Nord, you know, he's a sleeper coach. He's been in the state title game 2 times, and Carruthers always has those big farm boys ready to go.
All right, moving on to 2A. According to NUIC football, oh boy, our guest isn't going to like this one, but we'll go through it. Others receiving votes this week: Rock Ridge, Bloomington Central Catholic, Vandalia, Pana, and our good ALAH, as we all know. Number 10, Bismarck Henning at 10, Moments at 9, EPC at 8, Chicago Christian 7, Chester at 6, Johnston City at 5, Tri-Valley 4, Farmington at 3, Quincy Notre Dame at 2, Maroa Forsyth at 1. Matt, thoughts on 2A?
You know, it's going to be really interesting. You know, Olympia took one on the chin this week against New Berlin. We'll talk a little bit more about New Berlin if they've, you know, they're making some noise. But I want to talk about Maroa real quick. You know, their Week 7 game this week is against Olympia. That'll be in Maroa. By the way, Maroa's got brand new turf again. They were one of the first people to get the turf, and they went right through that, and now they got brand new turf. Week 8, Maroa will be at Williamsville. Week 9, they're against the New Berlin Pretzels, who right now are 6-0, along with Maroa. You know, it'll be really interesting too. You know, I mean, a lot of good games. You know, with the 2A. You know, up and down. I mean, Farmington, I think ever since they beat Elmwood, I mean, I think they've just been on a roll, and we'll talk to them tonight. And you know, just good football up and down the list.
No doubt. All right, moving on to 3A, top 10 according to NUICfootball.com. Others receiving votes this week: Monticello and Eureka. Number 10, Dupec. 9, Paxton, Buckley, Loda. Number 8, Princeton. 7, Williamsville. 6, Seneca. Number 5, Monmouth, Roseville. 4 is St. Joe Ogden. 3, Wilmington. 2, Montini Catholic. And 1, still number 1 since preseason, Byron in 3A. Anything stick out to you in 3A?
Well, you know, I talked about this earlier with Sterling Newman. You know, it's going to be really interesting to see with Lombard Montini. You know, Week 7 they take on 3-3 St. Viator. Week 8 they have St. Ignatius. Okay, Week 9 St. Lawrence. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of how they conclude their regular season. Monmouth Roseville, a team that's just really, really hot. But, you know, they've always been in discussion in Class 3A. Could this be the year that they're different? Because they had a statement game against Princeton, and they did a really good job a couple weeks ago. But their last 3, they're going to be at home in Week 8 against Taylor Ridge Rock Ridge, and then they're at Sterling Newman. Jeremy Adolphson does a great job. You know, and it'd be really interesting, too, you know, this whole 3A concept, you know. Are we looking at a collision course with, you know, Byron against St. Joe in the state championship game? I don't know. Maybe not so fast, my friends, as Lee Corso would say. You know, it's just going to be really interesting. You know, can Byron get healthy? You know, I know that Considine's been kind of out with a little bit with a wrist injury, and they have a couple other guys that are kind of banged up. So I think not that Byron's hurt in any danger, but they're probably going to use these next couple weeks.
Oh, but everyone at this time of year is
and they got a big one. They got a big one coming up here, you know, and not this week, but next week, you know.
Yeah,
they're big games coming up. So it'll be really interesting what happens and unfolds in Class 3A.
All right, let's move on to 4A. We've got our guest waiting, so we don't want to keep him waiting much longer. 4A, we'll go according to Associated Press because I really don't agree with this one, but it's okay. I'll argue it next week. Breeze Central is the number 1 team in 4A according to AP. Number 2 is Dixon. 3, St. Lawrence. 4 is Wheaton Academy. 5, Mantino. 6, Rochester. Come on, man. Rochester, I don't care who they lost to. 6 and 4A, I don't think so. 7, Coal City. 8, Richland County. 9, U-High. And then tied for 10th is Murfreesboro and Greenville. Others receiving votes this week: Boylan, Chicago Sullivan. Cahokia, IC Catholic, Macomb, Waterloo, Peoria, Notre Dame. So those are your thoughts in Class 4A. Matt, we'll talk 4A a little bit more next week because I don't want to keep our guests waiting any longer.
No problem.
You ready?
Absolutely.
You got a good intro for this guy? You want me to handle it? Should we bring him on?
Absolutely.
All right, joining us.
What's going on?
Of your Farmington Farmers, he has posted a fantastic 80-21 record in 10 years. He has made 8 straight. Nope, let me change that. It'll be 9 straight IHSA playoff appearances this year. Coach, congratulations for that. State qualifiers already, 6-0. And Coach, is there anything better than 6-0? I guess maybe 7-0.
7-0 would make me a little bit happier, but yeah, 6-0, pretty happy right now.
Welcome aboard. Great to have you, and appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join a couple of knuckleheads like us.
I talk to one of the knuckleheads often, so it's okay.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I know I can't get. He never forgets my phone number either. So,
Tim, I think you need to go to the barber. I mean, look at how good me and Coach are looking tonight. You know what I'm saying? I mean.
What?
There you go.
Oh boy! All right, Coach, you're 6-0. Obviously, state rank. Things are going well. Fill us in on the season so far. I mean, obviously, you got to imagine things for the most part have to be pretty good at this point.
Yeah, pretty senior dominated this year. We got some juniors that are obviously key players and a sophomore out there, but pretty senior dominated. Started off the season well, but I think we're playing our best we're getting to play our best football now. Last week we were I wouldn't say we were sharp as we usually are last week. I think coming off when you're patting yourself on the back for the game from the week before, it's a little bit tough to get ready for that one. But we hit our stride down the stretch and played well toward the end of the game, which was good. So,
Matt?
Coach, tell us about your quarterback. I know I've asked a lot about him over the years, and he looks like he's really developed. But if you could just talk a little bit about Leng and then talk about maybe just a couple of other names on the offensive line. And, I know you like to put a lot of pressure defensively. And are you still doing the same things defensively? And maybe talk about a couple of cohorts there on that defensive side of the ball.
So Lane Wheelwright obviously is our quarterback. I think he's probably one of our best players. He's 6'2", 185 pounds, probably one of the fastest kids we've ever had in our program. Throws the ball really well. He'd never played quarterback before high school, and we made the move. Super bright kid, but just very determined. I mean, he's a kid that I think I know he's been up to North Central a few times, but I think he's got a bright future quarterback somewhere, depending on where he wants to play in the future. But he'd definitely be a nice fit up there if that's where he decided to go. They've got a great program there.
And then Mad mentioned about up front offensive line. Obviously, you got to have the studs up front. So who are some of those kids this year you really have relied on?
Caden Mallon is a senior. He's a big kid. He's 6'3" or 4", all of 320. He's an honorable mention All-State last year. And then 2 other seniors, Slater Warren at tackle and Jacob Cecil at tackle, returning as seniors this year. And then a couple youngsters out there as well.
Coach, we got a couple of questions from, believe it or not, people watch this. I was shocked. It's a shock as anyone.
We're all through here.
I was shocked as anyone listens to this. But first of all, from Logan Swan sends this in and says, Coach, what offensive or defensive schemes do you find the trickiest to prepare for, and what do you put your players and team in the right positions? I'm sorry, I probably butchered that. Right positions when facing those schemes. So bottom line is, without tipping your hand too much, what gives you problems getting ready for?
Oh, I mean, I think anything that's balanced that doesn't key on one person. I still think the old school Jason Kirby triple option would be tough now because you just don't see it as much anymore. I still think the wing T is very tough to defend.
Yep.
Elmwood and Wilmington's double wing. I think, the fans like to complain about it, but I wish it would go away because it's either you can stop it or you can't. But I think those types of offenses, those system type offenses are very tough to defend.
Awesome. So, by the way, we definitely were joking, but Logan, we appreciate the question for sure. And our friends over in the northwest corner of the state, Coach, they're always following everything. And they've got a question for you. It says, what things are Coach Vallas and his staff doing to increase numbers in the program? Is there collaboration between high school staff and junior high staff to build the offensive and defensive schemes they will see once they hit the high school level?
You know, we probably don't do as much of that as we should, but the system that we run, you know, we throw it quite a bit and we're in the shotgun quite a bit. I don't know if at our young levels, if they could do that and be successful. And I think it's all about the kids' experience. I think we're fortunate that we're one campus, you know, K through 12, and we have coaches in every building, you know, doing different jobs. So they see our coaches all the time. Our high school kids do a good job of getting down to the elementary and seeing those kids. And I think that's a big part of it. But I think the two biggest things about our kids being out is we've stopped worrying as much about football and started worrying more about the social emotional aspects of our students. And that's drawn a lot of kids, a lot of young men and women to football at Farmington. And, you know, we started thinking about these are the things that we wanted, but what do our kids want? We really reached out and were introspective about what are the things that they want from our program. And we made sure they could get those things. And the other thing is all school lifting program. We all lift together. Every sport lifts together. And I think you just become one team. It becomes Farmington, not Farmington football and Farmington basketball and Farmington baseball. It's just Farmington. And I think that's created as much unity as anything.
Yeah, it seems pretty unique to me. Did you get that from somewhere? Did it just kind of come naturally? Where did you come to that? Because I've got to imagine you want to keep, you're going to have a ton of multi-sport athletes to begin with. What better way than to keep them all on track and on board than lifting as an entire group? It's great.
Well, Jeff Otto, who's our current AD, he and I got there the same year, and I became the head football coach. He became the head basketball coach. And all of our kids were complaining about, you know, these are farm kids, so they got chores to do at home and they're working jobs.
Yep.
And they said, you know, we're going to football in the morning from 8 to 10:30, and then we're going to basketball after that. Then we're doing this, and they were getting burned out. And we just made a deal, and I said, you take all of June, I'll take all of July. We won't touch them otherwise. We'll all lift together for an hour and a half, and all the coaches bought in, both groups, and of course the baseball kids were in there too. And we all started doing it together, and it just caught fire. Like there was a kid named Eric Higgs that was an all-stater for us in 16, and he was a basketball player, had not played football, and he came out for the first time as a junior and was a great player for us. And of course, broke his collarbone right before basketball. But you know, I remember after he broke his collarbone, his parents were great people. They were like, I don't know if this is for him. And he said, I owe it to these guys. We work out together every day. I'm playing. I don't care what you think. And when he started playing basketball, then Dylan Hayden, who was a great quarterback for us, he started playing basketball. And, you know, basketball went to the regional championship. Football went to the quarters. And all the kids, I think it really, when Eric came out, I think it really changed things for us.
Matt?
Coach, I was going to ask you now, when you guys decided to do the June and July stuff, did you still do weightlifting in June, or did you just kind of like, I mean, how did you kind of balance and modify?
Yeah, we all live together. So what happens really is because our kids, it's a pretty big geographic district. So we'll lift from 7 to 8, and then from like 8:30 to 10, they'll do basketball in June, and then that time becomes football. We'll all lift, and then it becomes football in July. And while we're lifting, the girls are doing their sport, and then they'll flip with us and come in the weight room.
Sure.
So
that's good.
That's worked out well.
I got 2 questions here for you. Okay. Number one, you know, like, what is your biggest memory of when you were at Farmington, you were taking on the Havana Ducks with Matt Leng as a head coach, and you beat me senselessly 55 to, I think, to 3 or something like that? That's my first question. Do you want to answer that right now?
The second best looking bald guy in the stadium. That's my memory.
There you go. Thank you very much. Now, all kidding aside, I can remember right before that game, and we were talking, and I don't know if it was during that game or, you know, it might have, but one of the things that I think you talked to me about was just like how you coach and how you approach kids now, how you instruct them, how you talk to them, how you kind of maybe lecture them or maybe chew their butt when they need to get their butt chewed. Today, how it's different because of the fact that they're getting, in some ways, like you said, they're kind of getting beat up on social media all the time. on different platforms. I mean, they're getting talked about on Instagram. They're getting talked about on Twitter. They're getting talked about on this, that, whatever. And I'll never forget that. I thought that was one of the greatest things you talked about. Like, your whole approach to how you talk to these kids is completely different. Could you elaborate about that?
Well, I think the big thing that I try to do, and I think our staff tries to do, is we try to be 100% honest with them. Kids are used to handling the harsh truth better than we ever were, because they're saying it all the time on social media, and whether it's true or false or whatever, but they're dealing with toughness. But I think the one thing is, like, social media creates a defense mechanism for everybody. Criticism creates a defense mechanism. It does for us, and I think that for years, as coaches, we would yell at kids and do this and that. But, when I talk to adults, they'll say, I can't believe how he talked to me in front of my peers. Well, I think about how we talk to students in front of their peers, and I think that's the big thing with our athletes, is they know that I respect them. Coaches get frustrated because things aren't going good. You're not frustrated with the kids that are out there on the field for you. You're frustrated with the kids that aren't out most of the time. And I think the big thing is respect those kids. If you got something to say to them that's tough, I don't think there's ever a reason to rip a kid individually. I think if you do, you pull them aside, you talk to them, you shoot them the truth. I know if my boss came to me and said, "You're not doing a very good job. I expect better out of you." And if it was something I cared about, that I put as much time in as those kids did, I would do my best to do better. But I know that if he came at me and yelled at me and then said, "I'm going to evaluate you 5 more minutes during a football game," it probably wouldn't be my best 5 minutes. I mean, and I think we just got to apply the things about how do we feel? How do humans like to be treated? You said to me one time, we're old now. We like to be around nice people. We don't have time for people that aren't nice. I think kids are like that now. When you're getting beat up on social media and parents around you and you got the stress of school and whatever, you play sports because it's fun. Let's make it fun. I always look at we owe our kids the best 4 years we could give them, whether they're successful in football, unsuccessful, man. Let's make it the greatest 3 and 6 season we could make it for you then. And we had some of those when I started,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, it definitely goes to show you that, boy, no one is safe from the social media world, are they? It hits
tough on kids. It really is.
Yeah, it definitely is. Coach, you look at the success you've had in your program. You've been a consistent winner. One of the things that we always throw around all the time, and it seems to be a never-ending debate, I want to throw it your way because I know you've been impacted in your program. I'm a huge proponent of 1 through 32. I think a lot of us are, for various reasons. I know, you run into the Bloomington Central Catholics of the world and the Wilmingtons of the world. Your thoughts on 1 through 32?
I'm 100% for it. I mean, these kids, let's not kid ourselves. This is very important to kids, very important to adults, very important to the parents. I mean, I just think gas prices, we're going to go there. I mean,
everything costs money now.
Everything costs money. We're going to worry about a gas price for one playoff game when our kids are walking around in $100 shoes and, $200 shoes, whatever they are now. Let's get the best 2 teams to play each other. And that's because I know how people say, oh, it's about, well, we just want to get the right champion, whatever. Every round is important to these kids. Every round is a memory. Your kids get 4 years in school. Let's give them the best 4 they can have.
In your thoughts on this, Coach, I'm very interested to know. I mean, and Matt and I have talked about this quite a bit. There is so much the educational experience that your kids get from being in those playoff games. Like, let's say they have to send you up to, I don't know, somewhere up north, somewhere in the city, God forbid, in the city or the suburbs, or they get sent to you in Farmington, and there's a lot of kids that never experienced that in their life. That you probably have kids in Farmington that might not ever get north of I-80 or wherever, or south, deep southern Illinois. I just think they're missing a lot. And whoever's, coming up with these rules, okay, I get it. You're trying to do what's best for us. It's fine. But Coach, I still think they're missing out on a whole lot of this that they don't even realize.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that experience of going somewhere new, win or lose, I mean, it's seeing the state. It's exposing our kids to something new, a different way of life, a different environment. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, I was gonna.
And bonding. It's bonding. It's
It is a
bonding as a
bonding
team.
experience. You know, like when I was at Olympia, I can remember going to the Walmart and on a Friday watching people in Walmart, and there were people from Geneseo that were in our Walmart in Bloomington Normal getting ready to go down to Carterville. And they just thought it was the greatest thing in the world that the Green Machine was going to be going down there to take on Carterville. It was the first time for a lot of these kids to be going down there, you know. And so I just think, like you said, anything that enriches the academic process, and let's face it, that's what some of the higher ups want, you know, they talk about that, but you know, let's put proof in the pudding here. I mean, this is a great opportunity for these kids to go places they've never been to, and like you said, leave a lifetime of memories.
We go to camp every year, and I always write letters to my kids at the end of the season, and they'll write back to me, you know. But almost all of them mention the greatest memory is going to camp in the summer. And we go 2 nights, but we'll go. Like, these kids are writing letters because they went to Galesburg and we stayed at Knox College, or we went to Illinois College, or Malmsted. Right. You're talking an hour or 2 away, but it opened their eyes to college. Yeah. It opened their eyes to something new, different jobs, people work in those places.
So let's say we made you the czar of high school football for a day. We'll give you a day or two. We'll let you settle in day 1, day 2, get to work, and then you're done. What would you like to change? It could be anything. It could be a rule. It could be something. It's up to you, Coach. What are we changing?
Well, I think I'd keep Wilmington in 3A. Not let them drop down. That'd be
nice.
The first thing.
Nice.
No, I mean, I think the one thing I would do, I mean, we're always looking for all these answers for, you know, the playoffs and this and that. I think I would take an average and say you got 9 weeks to play, or you got 10 weeks to play 9 games, and we'll figure out on an average. There has to be some sort of average we can figure out instead of going, oh, if you don't play a game this week, you're in trouble, and you know, there's got to be a way to figure that out. I think that's the first thing. And I don't know. I think we've got a pretty great sport the way it is. And I don't know. I don't have a lot of, I'm not one of those people that are anti-parochial school. I'm not. I don't mind them being in with us. I don't like when schools play a 7A schedule and drop down into 2A. I don't like that, but I think Sterling Newman belongs with us. I think, you know, some of those, they're just good. That's fine, you know, but I think there's a problem when some of those schools, you know, I mean, but if I took my kids to play Sacred Heart Griffin this year, you should call DCFS on me, right? But somebody might drop down and play us. You never know. So
right. Yep. Yeah, I totally get that. And again, it's issues that we've talked about that, you know, it's all about trying to make the sport better. I think, again, in a lot of cases, a lot of us probably share a lot more, have a lot of more commonality than I think anyone would think.
But you know, I think what I'm talking about that again, I think that the IHSA is also in a tough spot because people are moving to public schools too.
Yeah.
You know, they're moving to public schools and playing. So what's the difference there between renting an apartment somewhere and in the city and switching apartments to go to a different school? I mean, I don't know. It's tough when you really think about it. When you're on the opposite side, it's easy to point fingers, but I think it's tough, you know?
Yep, it is. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And you're right. I'm glad you mentioned that because, I mean, I'll be honest, north, and again, just for clarity, Matt Leng, and you know this, I technically live south of I-80, so I want that known. Now, if there's a civil war, I might be in trouble. I might be in the firing line of both of them. But the fact that, I mean, the Chicagoland coach, and it's not just football, it's various sports, that's almost commonplace now. And I don't know what you can do. And you're right. IHSA isn't a very difficult spot with it. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes to have to try to figure some of this stuff out for sure. But okay. Matt, do you have something for Coach?
Well, I just want to say you talked about Interstate 80. Let's just get over to our neck of the woods there, EDGYTIM. So we're going to talk about Interstate 74.
Yep.
We're going to talk about Knox County, Henry County. So, Mr. Vallas, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your upbringing and coaching football at Knoxville High School, taking over for Coach Larson, and after a few other coaches tried to. And you kind of rebuilt that into some respectability. I was able to see your big game and big win against Gibson City in the playoffs. I didn't really know you from diddly squat. I had a friend that coaches football down in Monticello that kind of told me about you, and you've helped me in some of my personal endeavors and stuff like that. But who are some of your influences in football, high school football, people that have helped you? I think there's probably a guy in Monticello that's helped you, but I know, talk about Coach Larson and just educate everybody tonight. Who has helped you be you?
So I think the first person that comes to my mind is Tim Ingerbretson. Obviously, he's the longtime Warren coach, United, one state at United. He's been retired for a little bit here, but not a better person in life. I don't think I probably go to college without him. He was my sophomore coach, and then he took the job at Warren. And, growing up, you think wherever you're growing up is the greatest place in the world. I was like, why would he leave here? What's going on? But he sought me out and talked to me about my potential, not as a coach or football or anything like that, but just as a go to college and do something with yourself. When he was older, when I was a little bit older after he had left. And I think that conversation always stuck with me. And I was the first person in my family to ever go to college, and I think he's a big part of that.
Wow.
In my coaching,
great man. He is a very good man.
Definitely. And I mean, in my coaching career, Roger Haynes at Monmouth College took me under his wing and pretty much raised me when I was in college. And then of course, Dennis Larson, when I started coaching, Dennis Larson did everything he could to help me succeed. I mean, he gave me books. He had me at his house. He fed me dinner with his wife. I mean, a couple years ago, they still showed up at our playoff games, him and his wife. And I mean, I don't know that I've never done anything for them, but I mean, the things they've went out of their way to do for me, unbelievable. And then I think Coley Welter at Monticello, he was at Aledo, and he shared everything with me, and I was a young coach, and we were playing each other, and he shared everything with me. And it's just, I've tried to do that with young coaches that I've helped now because of him, because he helped me with those things. Cause I knew nothing. We'd never thrown a forward pass anywhere I'd ever been. And he, took me under his wing in many ways and showed me that stuff. And, as the coaching fraternity goes, he helped me through a lot of personal stuff at different times. So very fortunate to have friends like that in the game.
Awesome. So 6-0, getting ready for 3 more weeks. Get ready after that. Obviously, you've already qualified for the state playoffs. Believe me, we realize you've got 3 more games ahead of you. We get that. But at what point do you allow yourself to maybe start to look around a little bit and get an idea of the landscape and looking ahead a little bit, playoff prep?
There's so much of that stuff out there on Twitter. I mean, I hear a little bit about it because I'm constantly telling my kids to forget about it at practice.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's impossible not to look a little bit. We can all say, hey, nobody does this and that, but I think we all look, and I don't think we look and go, hey, we're going to be 9-0, but I look and think, well, if we lose a game, we're going to end up here. If we win, if we win a game, we're going to end up here. But I think there's the what ifs, and I mean, the fun of it's the projection. What you asked me if I was the czar, what I would change? I'd switch the way they do that. You know what stinks? What stinks is we all figure out who we're playing ahead of time. It was exciting when you didn't know, and they did. And I don't know if the quadrants were the answer, but it was fun when you didn't know, and you'd be sitting there figuring it out, and they took this team, and you just played. You just played, and that's one thing I think about. Like the COVID year taught me is I used to always think, we got to win this game, we got to protect this seed. You're not guaranteed anything in the playoffs. It's all about the draw. We all know that. Yeah. And we played some really good teams, and our kids made some really great memories. And we've tried to, toughen up our schedule and make those playoff type games for our kids now. And that's one thing I don't regret, so.
Toby, I have a question to ask you. My 2 years at Havana, and I had the chance to kind of be with you in conference meetings, you had discussed this and talked about this, and that was, and I use the term all the time on this show, it's just eroding populations in communities and how it's going to have an impact on, conference alignment and shakeup. Now we see it in college football, and then, they're talking about, we might just have 2 or 3 super conferences in college football someday. You predicted it over there at Farmington. You're like, you looked right at me. You're like, Matt, no disrespect, but Farmington doesn't need to really be taking on Havana. We need to do something with our conference. What's your thoughts on that? Because I feel like you're very tuned into that. You kind of know, you have a thought on that. What do you
Well,
think the
shortly
future?
after
What
we
do you
left-
think the future is on that, and with classes in football?
So one of the things I think is we got pretty proactive, and we combined the Lincoln Trail and Prairie Land, and we do it all enrollment based now, and have kind of split up. And I think you're seeing that with well, I don't know my conferences very well, but the Heart of Illinois is doing it now with another league that Tuscola's from, and I think you're seeing some of that. And you know, you hear from the small school people all the time, oh, it's travel, but the big schools are traveling all the time now. I think enrollment matters a little bit more in football. Obviously, the IHSA thinks so with the classes. Football is a Friday night thing, and it's a community thing. So I don't think the travel's a big deal on Fridays. Now, when you start doing that in volleyball on a Tuesday, it obviously can be a little bit tougher. But I don't know. I don't see the IHSA going back to less classes. I mean, I don't see that happening. I know everybody complained, oh, we're watered down, we're getting more classes. Try to move it back, see what everybody says. I don't see it happening. But I don't know. I mean, I think we still have a pretty good thing out there right now. I think for all the complaints about the IHSA and all about football, I think we have a pretty good thing, and I heard the argument a few years ago, only the elite teams are winning state trophies. That's what they're for. I mean, Lena Winslow wins a trophy. They're pretty darn elite. I watch them all the time. They're pretty darn elite, and I sometimes that's just how it is. I think if you're in that for the trophy, you're going to be pretty unhappy at some point. You better be in it for the kids, and the trophy comes, it comes,
Yeah.
8 teams are happy. Everyone else, not so much. It's kind of how it's been. And I totally agree with that, Coach. What obviously we're hearing last week, there was a story, IHSA kind of getting the feelers out there for expanding the teams in the playoffs. Is that kind of where we're headed? Because I just get the feeling, Coach, that districts obviously tried twice and didn't really fly. Yeah, I totally get the argument of teams that were scheduling for 5 wins, and you got to get that 5th win, and you got to get in. Maybe this alleviates that or makes it easier. Just your thoughts on the possibility of them expanding the playoff field.
Yeah, I like things the way they are, but I read the email as, "Hey, this is happening. Which way of these do you prefer them to happen?" It's kind of how I read it, but maybe I read it incorrectly. But I think we're headed that direction. The thing I don't know, it's hard for. I think one of the systems that's weird is, all these rules and all these rule changes come from the body, not from the IHSA. That's one thing they always say, hey, these ideas have to be submitted from you guys. Well, the IHSA is the only one that really has a statewide view of everything, of what's going on. I would have never said people are scheduling to get 5 wins, because that's not what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing people scheduling just hoping we have 9 because teams are dropping off and they can't field the team.
Yep.
I think somewhere in there, the IHSA is going to have to propose what they think is the best, because they understand what's happening in the suburbs and in Carterville and in West Central and with 8-man and in New Lenox. I mean, the rest of us, we don't know. We're all self-serving because we want what's best for our kids and we want what's best for our communities. But I think they're going to have to propose what they think is best and let us vote on it, instead of having us propose different things that help different factions of us. Even if we're not trying to be self-serving, we are by nature, because we think those are the problems. But my problems in Farmington, I assure you, are not the same as the people in New Trier and probably not the people in Herons. We're all experiencing something different. And the IHSA, I know some of those guys down there, they are very smart. And I think we just need to quit worrying about hurting our feelings and tell us what you really think needs to happen, and then let's decide.
Yeah, I also would not want to be in the people-pleasing business anymore.
No.
That's not good.
Oh,
That is
no.
not a good business to be in at all these days. And
One thing I will say, you did a great job of explaining that, Toby. And I'll just tell you this. I mean, I think we do have a good thing. I think about I'll never forget the day John Elder was in a meeting over in Morton, and in his raspy voice saying, I can't believe we're going to have 8-man eight classes in football. But, the great thing about the resiliency of kids and schools and administrators and educators is we've all kind of evolved and we've all adjusted, whether it be 8 classes to shifting to play football in Champaign to DeKalb to back where it probably should be all along. We've always adjusted. And I think that just shows the resolve of what we're all about.
football coaches by nature, we're not the most open-minded crew, right? I mean, wishbone guys make fun of spread guys make fun of wing T guys. We're all playing the greatest game in the world. We all should be learning from each other. So open-mindedness is probably not the we've been known to be wrong before we tried something. So
I want Coach. I want you to talk about. And again, it was Adam Duvall who had the story earlier in the year about one of your players. Is it Jarrett Fauser?
Yep.
Talk about his story. You talk about overcoming adversity and what that young man's had to put up. Really, it seems like his whole life, and to the point where he's at now. Just fill the viewer in about his story.
So Jarrett's mom is our softball coach. He's a Hall of Fame softball coach and a very good friend of mine. But Jarrett had leukemia as a young man. I mean, bad. He was a Make-A-Wish child.
Yeah.
And since he's been 12, and I think he's 17 now, he's been cancer-free since he was 12. Every year they do his nickname's Jetty. They've always called him that since he was a little kid. And they do a Team Jetty thing for him. And they have these water slides on. It's a little country. I don't know if you'd like it, Tim, but you'd fit in, Leng. It's a little country, but they've got these homemade water slides and people are sliding down them, and everybody's cooking food. People they're just raising money for St. Jude's, and it's really a great thing. People
and a huge amount, right? I saw a dollar amount, absolutely huge.
Oh yeah, they bring in a ton of money and donate it all, and it's just been an awesome thing. And he's a great kid. He's a little bit small in size, but he's big in heart, and he's a tremendous football player for us, and just a really, really great kid too.
Yeah, that I saw that story and just thought immediately, wow, just says a lot. Definitely says a lot about your
captain for us. I mean, he's just a great kid. So, and he understands. The thing I like about him is a lot of kids wouldn't understand what they've been through and what they did. He understands it. And he understands how lucky he is, and he appreciates that life that he has.
Well, and that just the fact that he's able to play. I mean,
yep,
you got to feel lucky that way.
So Coach, it's usually around this time of the show where Tim asks you who you would want to play against, like an opponent you'd want to play against.
Yep. Who's your dream opponent?
I'm going to steal his idea. I'm going to twist it a little bit. You're in the state championship game, okay? And you got a great team. What head coach do you want to go against? And you want the best coach and the best team. Boom, right now, who are you going against?
Who's the best coach that I want to play against?
You coach against for a state title game. If you could make a dream matchup, 7 o'clock at night in a dome stadium.
The best coach in the state's Coley Welter, in my opinion. He's the only coach to win state titles at 2 public schools. You see it in the private schools. You don't see it in the public schools. Yeah. Now, I don't know that I want to play him because there's this huge sign at Aledo that has all these games that he won. If you take that all the victories against me off there, it's not that impressive. I mean, that sign's pretty average without the wins against me. But yeah, I mean, that's a good friend of mine. I know I'd leave there and one of us would be darn happy. So
Coach, you know what we do? Explain it, Matt.
Well, I'm a name dropper. And since I started name dropping Coach Welter's name, since he's been extremely important to me, every time we mention Coley Welter's name, we take a drink. So if you have something you want to drink real quick,
take a drink every time. That's all right. We'll let you catch up later, Coach. But yeah, so just so you don't think we're out of our minds. Well, we are out of our minds, but that's kind of what we do.
We have a little bit of fun. So, but yeah, no, he's a great coach, great guy. And so, just.
True story, though. One time I played him, and he did some stuff to us defensively. And I'm not getting knocked us out of the playoffs. It was like round 2. I figured it out like in March. Like it was March, and I went, wait a minute. I'm ready for him next time. But it took
like wake up in the middle of the night or?
Yeah, I mean, I woke up in March and I went, I know what he did now. Now I know what he did. I guess I was a little young then, but I don't know. He was a ways ahead of me.
And he always wears the shorts and always wears the he's always got the shorts on.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. Coach, again, congratulations on a great start. Keep it rolling, get that 9-0 and get that high seed. And I'll do my best to keep Wilmington away from me. I can't promise, but I'll try. And
that was my only move I was making when I was the czar. So I
will
appreciate you guys having me. You had a great show, and I appreciate it.
I will let Jeff Reentz know. There's no. I actually am talking to him tomorrow night. He's got a big one this week against Coal City, so I will.
He's
be
been to
talking
Farmington before, unfortunately, so I've met Coach Reentz. So great guy, though. Not a better guy out there.
No doubt. Toby, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Toby.
Yep, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. All
Thank
right.
you.
We appreciate it. Toby drops off, and Matt, again, just great guy, great coach, and a lot to share with us. And we definitely appreciate him joining us.
No, we've been spot on with our guests, where they've been very gracious of their time. I think us being able to do this a little bit later in the evening lends itself to some great conversations. Toby's helped me through some personal issues, but he's also helped me with some football stuff. He's someone I admire. He's just very, very into it. I'm so old that his superintendent, Zach Chatterton, was the first football player I ever coached at Spoon River Valley High School with Larry Johnson Jr., who is now retired. So anyway, there's a bunch of names right there. So,
there you go.
But Toby's great, and they'll be a tough out in Class 2A.
So we're inching ever closer to the playoffs. We've only got really 2 more weeks before we go into week 9, and then off we go. So I think what we'll do is we'll have another guest next week, and then maybe the week after. And then obviously once playoffs get here, we want to focus in and really start breaking down brackets and breaking down matchups and what have you. By the way, this has not been publicly noticed or made yet, but yeah, if you're tired of this face, you're not gonna really not like me come playoff pairing night. We'll leave it at that. But we'll have more on that soon. But Matt, appreciate you coming in and enjoying it. Again, another good coach, another good interview, and hopefully everyone out there enjoyed it. We'll continue to post questions if you have questions for our guest. We'll give you a little heads up, let you know who our guest is going to be, and we'll.
I will say this. A lot of the coaches are starting to give me the names and the information about their teams. And let me tell you, it's going into I've got it right here. And once we start getting to the playoffs, like you said, Tim, we'll really start dissecting those matchups, those programs.
Yeah, I can't wait.
And those individuals. So thanks to everybody that's been getting out there to me. I've been contacting them. You guys have done a great job. You make our show awesome.
Yeah, appreciate everybody. So again, have a great week. By the way, can this weather be any better? It's been fantastic. The forecast for this weekend looks fantastic. I know I'm cursing us, and I know I'm going to be screaming my head off when we get that first bad weekend, but you got to enjoy it, Matt, while it's here. So by all means,
meteorologist Tim,
get out, go to a game, go enjoy yourself, take the family, have fun, and get out in those communities. Get out to Farmington. Get out to where you can just feel the intensity of high school football, man. There's nothing better. So,
yep.
All right. For Matt Leng, I'm EDGYTIM. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Good night.